Welcome back, everybody, and today I just want to jump right in and talk about like how much I love Criterion for what they're doing right now. They have taken the paywall down on several films either made by black filmmakers or like revolving around a black subject matter, and I think this is just a great opportunity to watch some really good work. And so I watched 3 films that I'm going to talk to you guys today about, so let's get into it. Who knows how long this opportunity will be available, and there's a ton of good films to pick from. And I want to start off by talking about my favorite one of these, which is A Well-Spent Life, the 40-minute documentary by Les Blank about the Texas blues singer Mance Lindstrom. So this is a good one to me because it kind of hits close to home, because it takes place in Navasota, which is only about like an hour and a half from where I live here in Houston, Texas. And it's a film that I can see myself revisiting time and time again if like I'm homesick or anything like that. This doc really captures Southern hospitality in a beautiful way. And you can really see that in an example when Les Blank goes over to the Lindstrom's house for dinner, and Mance Lindstrom's wife is making him fried chicken, and this is the first time in the film where you're really aware of the camera work and you're really aware of the cameraman, and I think that's a really interesting technique because it kind of strips away the kind of documentary aspect of it and says, hey, this is about a connection between these subjects and the filmmaker. They're just a connection between people, really, and I'm just really into the way that he went about shooting that scene and the rest of the movie. There's just great music, and if you're a fan of the blues, this is definitely one that is worth checking out. So next up, I want to talk about Oscar Micheaux's Body and Soul. Now, Oscar Micheaux is a director from the silent era, and so this movie was made in like 1925, and I don't really watch too many silent films, but I will say this one definitely feels different because the music is modern. It's a modern composer, and if you're a fan of jazz, I think you'll really enjoy watching this because the music is contemporary, but it also just kind of relaxes you into watching this film. But the film in itself is pretty good. I mean, obviously it's dated and you kind of have to watch it knowing that you're watching a silent film and all that. But aside from that, it's just really interesting to kind of delve into the history of Oscar Micheaux, this great American director. The great thing about Oscar Micheaux is how he actually got to make films. You know, he's like a self-starter. He's a self-made man. He's the descendant of slaves. So if you think about how hard that would have been to make a movie back then, I mean, you can only imagine. So this is somebody who sold stock to finance his films, who wrote novels to gain money to make his films, and to me, what makes Oscar Micheaux so interesting is that I would kind of fit him in with a group of filmmakers similar to Godard and Linklater, in the sense that they kind of worked outside the Hollywood studio system and created their own means to make films. And they did this because they knew that there was an audience outside of the traditional Hollywood audience. For Micheaux, it was black moviegoers who weren't represented in the films that they were seeing at this time, and who Hollywood had no real interest in making films for anyways. I guess one of the real reasons why I think it's important that we watch these old American films is that they're basically like little treasures. I mean, think about how hard it is to preserve something like that, and the fact that most race films of this time were lost. So the fact that we even have this and can watch it today is an astonishing fact in itself. And there's just so much history that you can pull from it. I mean, this is a director who not only was making films for a black audience, but he was, directly targeting subject matter that in other cases weren't being addressed, and to be honest, were being exploited. So if you think of a film like The Birth of a Nation, which I think came out in like the mid 1910s, that film is incredibly racist and paints a really bad picture of the African American experience. So he was making films in revolt to that. He's a great American pioneer of filmmaking, and I definitely think this film is worth watching, and if not that, he's at least worth knowing about. And the last film I want to talk about is a film called Down in the Delta. Now, this is a film by Maya Angelou, the famous writer, poet, This is the first and only film that she wrote and directed, and you can kind of see the traces of her writing in it, and the fact that there's this grandfather relationship with the grandson, and in that is a lot of, poetic moments, a lot of life lessons that are learned, and to me that's what I got out of it. But this is a film from the 90s, so of course it's dated and it's, got that 90s feel to it. But to me, this is a good film to watch on kind of a lazy afternoon. It's not going to make you think too hard. It's kind of just a very touching film, just about family and heritage and, where we come from and where we're going. And I think we can all kind of relate to a story like that, and we can all, glean something from these lessons and stories that are being passed on to generations, even though we might not look the same way as this family or whatever. There's a lot that we can connect on. So in wrapping this up, I just want to talk about how awesome I think that it is that the Criterion channel is doing this, just because it reminds me of why I got into Criterions in the first place. Just every now and then you'll find a little treasure trove of a film that you love, and for me that was a well-spent life. So the fact that I can still find something just randomly that just changes my perspective on film and documentary and what it can be is great. So I really hope that you check out these free films, because hopefully there's something in one of them for you that might change the way you think about movies and things like that. So yeah, stay tuned for the next one, and thanks for tuning in.